Carl Jung revealed a transformative truth. The path to emotional healing starts with a step that is both disarmingly simple and profoundly difficult: choosing yourself. In a world that incessantly demands we look outward, conform to others' expectations, seek their approval, and mold ourselves to fit their standards, this choice feels revolutionary. We're trapped in a relentless pursuit of external validation, chasing recognition, love, and acceptance from bosses, parents, partners, or peers. Yet, we rarely pause to ask the most vital question: what do I truly want? What do I need to feel whole, fulfilled, and at peace? The answer never lies in the external world, not in a promotion, a parent's nod, or a lover's admiration. It resides within, in that quiet, persistent voice of your authentic self, often drowned out by fear of being inconvenient, too demanding, or simply not enough. Choosing yourself isn't the selfishness we've been conditioned to fear. It's an act of profound courage, turning toward the most important person in your life, you. It's about granting yourself the care, respect, and attention you so readily lavish on others, but rarely reserve for yourself. Jung warned that the root of our deepest emotional wounds, anxieties, and disappointments lies in a single, pervasive disconnection: the severance from our true essence. We spend years, even decades, playing roles: dutiful worker, accommodating friend, perfect parent, or selfless partner, until one day we wake up and realize we've lost ourselves. We've become strangers in our own lives, and this alienation breeds a haunting emptiness. In desperation, we try to fill this void with external fixes: overworking, chasing relationships, splurging on possessions, or scrolling endlessly through social media. But the emptiness persists, because its source isn't a lack of achievements or connections. It's the loss of our inner truth. Everything we suppress, every desire we deny, every fear we hide, every truth we bury, even from ourselves, doesn't disappear. It festers, transforming into a shadow that lurks beneath the surface, manifesting through repetitive, painful patterns in relationships, self-sabotaging habits, sudden crisis, or that unshakable sense of hollowness that lingers even when life appears successful on the outside. You may have asked yourself countless times, why does my life feel stagnant? Why do I keep repeating the same mistakes? Why am I surrounded by people who don't value me? The answer is unflinchingly clear. The problem isn't out there, it's within. Until you begin to listen to your inner voice, the world will mirror your internal chaos. If there's turmoil inside, you'll encounter turmoil outside. Healing doesn't start when you land the perfect job, meet the ideal partner, or curate a new social circle. It begins when you stop seeking salvation in external sources and muster the courage to look inward. Your life is a reflection of your inner state. If you're constantly entangled with people who undervalue you, if your energy drains into toxic relationships or futile endeavors, if you repeatedly find yourself in situations where you're exploited, dismissed, or overlooked, it's not a coincidence. It's your subconscious sounding an alarm. Stop. Something's wrong. The real question is, are you ready to heed this call? Most of us shy away from these signals, because confronting ourselves is perhaps the most daunting challenge we can face. Acknowledging our wounds, fears, and mistakes, realizing that we've allowed pain to persist for years, requires immense bravery. But it's precisely in this moment of raw awareness that true transformation takes root. You cannot heal while nourishing your wounds. You cannot overcome anxiety if you're perpetually replaying catastrophic scenarios in your mind. You cannot find fulfillment if you surround yourself with people who deplete you. You cannot cultivate confidence if your worth hinges on others' validation. Jung spoke of individuation, the lifelong process of shedding the weight of external expectations and reconnecting with your authentic self. This isn't about withdrawing from the world or embracing solitude forever. It's about refusing to let others define your identity, your path, or your purpose. Reflect for a moment. How many times have you silenced your desires to avoid judgment? How often have you said, yes, when every fiber of your being screamed, no? How frequently have you ignored your intuition to remain convenient or likable? When you choose yourself, a profound shift occurs. You activate a new kind of energy. You stop settling for emotional crumbs, begging others to fill your inner voids, or contorting yourself to fit their molds. You recognize that your worth isn't tied to pleasing others, but to embracing your true self. Slowly, the world around you begins to change. Relationships that once drained you lose their power. Situations that reduced you to tears no longer feel like the end of the world, not because the external landscape has shifted, but because you have transformed from within. This journey is not a quick fix or a one-time epiphany. It demands courage to say no to what erodes your spirit, even if it disappoints those around you. It requires patience to unearth your true desires beneath layers of societal conditioning and inherited beliefs. Above all, it calls for unrelenting honesty with yourself. Jung cautioned, "The price of ignoring yourself is exorbitant." We pay with chronic anxiety, bone-deep exhaustion, and a pervasive sense of being lost in a life that feels borrowed. But when you choose yourself, the world softens. Conflicts that once consumed you lose their grip because you've stopped waging war against yourself. Healing isn't a finish line where you arrive and rest. It's a daily commitment, choosing your peace over external validation, your truth over convenient falsehoods, and yourself, even when fear whispers to retreat. The serenity and confidence you sought in others were always within you, waiting for your permission to emerge. You deserve a life where you don't constantly seek others' approval to feel worthy. The only question is, are you ready to take that first step? The path to yourself is the only journey that truly matters. If you continue to evade your inner wounds, the world will reflect them back like an unrelenting echo until you finally turn and face them head-on. This process is intimidating because it forces you to confront uncomfortable truths. What you mistook for love was often dependency. What you called friendship was sometimes a transactional exchange. Many of your choices were driven by the fear of being not enough. But when you choose yourself, a seismic shift occurs. You stop compromising your integrity, tolerating what diminishes you, or excusing the inexcusable. The most frightening part? People will leave, not because you've changed, but because your boundaries have. Those you thought were indispensable may vanish without a word. What initially feels like a painful loss later reveals itself as liberation, as every closed door creates space for authentic connections. Letting go doesn't mean instant detachment or pretending you're unaffected. It's about accepting that you can't force others to value you, that your happiness doesn't depend on those unwilling to honor your worth, and that you alone are responsible for your well-being. In that moment, the world divides. Those who keep searching externally for what they've lost within, and those brave enough to embark on the inward quest. Jung called this the path to wholeness, the only path worth pursuing. When you choose yourself, your relationships undergo a natural filtration. People accustomed to your endless giving without reciprocity fade into the background. In their place emerge those who see and value the real you, not because you've changed, but because you've stopped accepting half-hearted connections. These bonds aren't rooted in sacrifice, but in mutual growth and enrichment. However, reaching this point is excruciating. It's not just about losing others. It's about confronting the part of yourself that permitted mistreatment for years. It's easier to blame partners, bosses, or circumstances than to admit that everything in your life reflects what you've allowed internally. Jung warned, suppressed aspects of ourselves don't vanish. They become a shadow, an unseen force orchestrating our lives through irrational fears, emotional outbursts, or recurring destructive patterns. Choosing yourself brings this shadow into the light. You begin to see how you sabotage your own happiness, saying yes when you mean no, tolerating what should be rejected, or fleeing from relationships where you're genuinely valued. Here, you face a critical choice: continue on autopilot, blaming the world for your pain, or seize control with brutal honesty. The first path is seductive, allowing you to lament an unfair life. The second demands accountability, acknowledging how often you betrayed yourself, squandered your time on the undeserving, or settled for scraps when you deserved abundance. But in this truth lies freedom. The pain of self-awareness is fleeting, unlike the enduring torment of self-deception. Jung said, "We cannot heal what we refuse to confront." But when you meet your authentic self, stripped of masks and excuses, something shifts. You realize life isn't a random lottery, but a mirror of your choices. Every yes or no shapes your reality. You no longer need external permission to exist as you are. Suddenly, old dramas lose their hold. Anxiety about the future dissolves into quiet trust in your resilience. A new lightness emerges, not purchased or borrowed, but earned through your courage to choose yourself. This journey is far from easy. There will be days of doubt when old wounds resurface, moments when the comfort of the familiar tempts you to backslide. But now you know the truth: your peace is invaluable, your well-being non-negotiable, your worth independent of others' opinions. Jung taught that life's purpose isn't fleeting happiness but wholeness, achieved by embracing your light and shadow without fear or the pursuit of approval. When you live from this authenticity, you attract people and opportunities aligned with your essence. Your life becomes a reflection of your inner clarity, proving that when you choose yourself, the world responds in kind. Yet, this path requires vigilance. Society, family, and even friends will try to pull you back into old patterns, questioning your choices or accusing you of selfishness. Some will celebrate your growth, others will probe with uncomfortable questions, and those who benefited from your compliance will resist your transformation, wielding guilt or manipulation to restore the status quo. This is the ultimate test. Will you revert to familiar patterns or stand firm in your truth? The fear of loneliness is a powerful trap. We're conditioned to believe that being alone equates to being unworthy or unloved. But the real issue isn't solitude, it's the inability to be at peace with yourself. Jung emphasized that true wholeness requires periods of deep introspection, where you stop seeking externally what can only be found within. When you become comfortable in your own company, you no longer settle for anything just to avoid silence. Jung described the dark night of the soul, a phase where old structures collapse, and the new has yet to form. It's a void of uncertainty, where the ground feels unsteady beneath your feet. Many falter here, craving immediate answers or clinging to familiar crutches. But true transformation unfolds in this liminal space, where you allow yourself to exist in the unknown without rushing to fill it with old habits. Here, you confront a profound realization: much of your identity was built around others' expectations. Your worth was tied to how needed, accepted, or approved you were. When these external supports dissolve, you're left with the question: who am I when no one is watching? The answer lies not in what you project to the world, but in what you've hidden, even from yourself, in your shadows, wounds, suppressed desires, and unrecognized gifts. When you stop running from yourself and gaze unflinchingly into the mirror of your soul, a miracle unfolds. The need to please evaporates. The fear of rejection fades. For the first time, you taste true freedom, not recklessness, but the liberty to exist without external validation. Yet, the world will test you. Old patterns will resurface, tempting you to revert. People who once manipulated you may try again. These aren't setbacks, but opportunities to affirm your growth. You've changed not because the world has, but because your responses have. You no longer justify your existence or prove your worth. You understand that not all connections are meant to last, and losing some people is not a tragedy, but a natural pruning of your life's garden. Choosing yourself reveals patterns you once ignored. Life ceases to feel like a series of random events, and becomes a mirror of your inner world. As Jung noted, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. What you resent in others exists within you. What you admire in others is also yours. This is both shadow and light, and embracing both is the key to healing. You no longer fear solitude because you've embarked on the most significant journey to yourself. Every challenge, loss, or encounter becomes a lesson, guiding you toward a deeper understanding of who you are. If you repeatedly attract relationships where you feel undervalued, or find yourself straining for others' attention, pause and ask, what part of me still believes I'm not enough? The answer lies in your deepest convictions about yourself. When you engage in this inner work, life transforms. It stops feeling like an obstacle course. Anxiety about the future fades as you anchor yourself in self-trust. Relationships become spaces for growth, not battlegrounds. Most importantly, you reclaim sovereignty over your life. Challenges and doubts won't vanish, but you now have tools to prevent them from ruling you. You no longer act from scarcity. Your choices stem from inner abundance. You don't desperately seek love. You know it's always been within you. Jung taught, the goal isn't to avoid pain, but to integrate it into your story. True healing isn't escaping wounds, but transforming them into wisdom. When you embrace this, you stop living in past grievances or future fears. The present becomes the only reality that matters, where peace emerges, not because problems disappear, but because you trust your ability to navigate them. Your worth no longer hinges on external approval, but on a simple truth: you are enough. Choosing yourself restores not just time and energy, but something far more precious: the right to be authentic. You realize much of your suffering stemmed not from circumstances, but from the stories you told yourself. That love must be earned through sacrifice, that acceptance requires conformity, that your value depends on proving your utility. When you challenge these beliefs, clarity emerges. You were never obligated to carry burdens that weren't yours. Jung explained that the collective unconscious is filled with inherited patterns, unquestioned notions of love, success, duty, and sacrifice. We absorb these from childhood, living scripts that aren't ours. Awakening begins with tough questions. Why do I believe what I believe? Why do I tolerate what hurts me? Whose rules am I following? Perhaps you grew up watching parents sacrifice endlessly, internalizing that love must be painful. Maybe you were taught that rest is weakness, leaving you guilty for pausing. Or perhaps you learned that strength means enduring everything, making it hard to release toxic situations. But here's the liberating truth: you're not bound to repeat these patterns. Jung insisted that fate isn't fixed, it's shaped by conscious choices. As you expand your awareness, your reality shifts. Choosing yourself reveals that love doesn't have to be a struggle, peace isn't a luxury, and your worth requires no proof. It's a fact of your existence. This metamorphosis disarms those who once manipulated you. Situations that rattled you lose their intensity. You stop chasing approval from those unwilling to hear you, breaking yourself to fit where you're not welcomed, or salvaging what belongs to the past. This is true freedom, not lawlessness, but inner independence. You find comfort in solitude without emptiness, confidence that no matter what life brings, you'll meet it grounded in yourself, whole, authentic, and unburdened by false crutches of external validation. The journey to yourself is the only one where the destination outweighs the pace. Each step is a reunion with who you were, who you are, and who you can become. No matter how arduous, it's the only path that leads to you, unmasked, unconditional, and inherently worthy. When you choose yourself, life rewards you unexpectedly. New people enter, opportunities once unimaginable arise, and above all, you find a peace you never knew possible, not because you've conquered the world, but because you've stopped fighting yourself. The world changes when you change. Relationships flourish when you nurture your relationship with yourself. Possibilities emerge when you act from abundance, not lack. Jung said the unconscious responds to our deepest beliefs. When you truly believe you deserve more, the universe mirrors it. This path isn't linear. Doubts will creep in, old wounds will resurface, and the pull of familiarity will test your resolve. But each time you choose yourself, you affirm your worth. You no longer live from scarcity or fear. You act from fullness, knowing that everything you need is already within. Jung's wisdom endures. The purpose of life is wholeness, achieved by daring to be yourself. When you live this truth, you don't just survive, you thrive, creating a life that reflects your inner light. The question remains, are you ready to let go of what weighs you down and embrace the life you were meant to live? It won't be easy, but it's worth every step. Choose yourself and watch the world transform.